We are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk.
All right. Welcome to an episode of P-Car Talk. I am Mike.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are in Indianapolis. Look at us. We're in Indianapolis. No, but in all seriousness, we have a special guest on our show, Cory Corona. Thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
I know. This guy is like smooth.
Yep.
So I'm so happy to have him on. Multiple reasons. We became friends with Cory over time through mutual friends. He takes care of quite a few of our fleets as an independent. He also has another gig, but I mean, his background is in Porsche. He was a master mechanic with Porsche for a while, worked with them, and then kind of moved on and did a couple other things at some independents. And he's a DE and autocross racer. So he has some experience there. So we'll get into all of that stuff because it's actually really good because, you know, Aaron and I don't have any firsthand experience with any autocross stuff. So we can actually get into some really cool stuff with Cory with maybe how to set up a car and like what are some of the things that, you know, what people need to look out for when they want to start to get into it. So let's get all into it, Cory. So first and foremost, obviously, you know, you went off to official school with Porsche. What made you take that avenue or even seek out that brand to do that to begin with?
You know, it started pretty early on. I started going to races, particular PCA club races, probably 13, 14, something like that. Mm-hmm. And you just kind of get hooked on it. Well, just like you guys, you know, you get bit by the bug.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I don't really.
Yeah, at that point, you just kind of were like, hey, I'm going to go do this.
Exactly.
So explain to us from an external standpoint, because there may be some young listeners or some people like that are interested in maybe even making a career change. How does one even go about trying to apply for that program? How do you even go about doing something like that?
It's there's a lot of different avenues. Luckily, I have a father that's a mechanic, so you know, as soon as I could hold a wrench, you know, I was learning. Okay. But I took the route of I found a local race shop. At the time, it was Dave White Racing in Tampa, and I took an apprenticeship. Okay. And I took that route.
So learned, old school style. Yeah. You did the apprenticeship,
exactly.
Right? Okay.
I mean, nowadays you can go take tech school, you know, get certified and do stuff like that. Okay. But you know, I took the apprentice route and got my certifications and worked for the dealer and you know, and moved on to independent shops where I felt a little bit more comfortable. But yeah.
Very cool. So you and I have talked many, many times because you've worked on everything that I own actually now. And I think one of the more interesting things from, you know, when you were doing some of that official Porsche stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong, because if I don't tell a story, that's kind of what I'm leading you into. We talked about first gen Cayennes and how you guys were like tearing open blocks because that was kind of the time frame when you were there or learning, right? And you were saying how robust that engine was. Can you elaborate on, so I don't tell the entire story, like what some shared DNA with some other Porsche cars that's shared with?
Oh yeah, it's so one of the reasons why I love Gen 1, Gen 2's Cayennes, which we've talked about a ton, but is they just made it overkill. Like every aspect of the car. Out of the gate, they wanted it to be like the best off-road, on-road SUV that you can make. Yeah.
Because there's a lot riding, right? It's Porsche's name.
Yeah. I mean, the V8 block itself was based loosely on the RS Spider.
You just heard it right there. That's why I wanted him. I was leading him into that. He knew where I was going with that, so I didn't want you guys to claim bullshit on Mike for saying that. So I'm glad Cory said it.
Yeah,
he was like, "Oh, Mike bullshits all the time."
I'm not saying it's the motor, but no, it's the architecture of it. It's
super close.
Of it. Yeah. So
when he says super close, like that's. So if you have a Gen 1 Cayenne like I do, it's essentially an RS Spider.
Pretty much.
I'm just joking. But the point of that is actually there is some resemblance of some of that stuff there.
Oh, for sure. No, yeah. Just like mostly what Porsche does. It's race bred and then put into production. And that's very much so in the Cayenne. Yeah. So when you actually pull the motor out of that car, it looks like such a huge thing from the outside, all the motor and the tranny. Yeah. And it's just this little short block,
little guy
that makes great power. And it's really not much issues. I mean, it's got little things here and there like any other car, but it's
nothing massive,
rock solid.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think a good friend of Aaron and I's, and you may know him from just being in the industry, but maybe not buddies with him, but Don Leatherwood at Brumos was telling me during that same time frame too, they were running a prototype Brumos car that I'm sure everybody's seen. It's the bubble car looking like bubble cabinet cabin, but they ran a Cayenne S motor in that car because they wanted to run in a Porsche class, but they couldn't get the car certified in time for the IMSA season.
Yep. Exactly.
So they had to run prototype. But the point of that is they literally took a factory block. They didn't turn it up. They didn't do any of this stuff, do any forged anything. It literally sent them a block to run, a fully assembled engine, and they threw it in that prototype in the back, and they won the prototype class at the 24 with a Cayenne engine.
Yeah, I remember that build back in the day. It was pretty sweet.
So factoid for maybe people who don't know, but we were kind of saving that. We knew that for a while, but wanted to bring that in because you have experience.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad.
We knew we were going to put Cory on for a long time.
It,
but but I remember many times when I'm at your shop and you've been working on my stuff, and even when I brought my Cayenne to you and you were underneath it and we're talking about the robustness of that thing and how little you have to do to that thing and how capable it is. Like, granted, you're not going to go out there and win Baja with it, but if you do some light, loose off-road stuff, it can do that all day long and not even have to do anything to it.
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they made it like over capable.
Yeah, and you own one, so you're speaking from firsthand experience.
Yeah, and I have the base one, the VR6 motor in it, which is dead reliable, which I love too. But yeah, which I love how the aftermarket has blown up for them now. Mm-hmm. But even you get one of those first gens, you put some good all-terrain tires on it, and you can go out in there and run neck and neck with some Jeeps and off-road rigs.
It's super capable,
crazy.
and it can do all the in-town stuff we've talked about over and over again. So so you progress from there. So how long did you work at a Porsche dealership before you decided to go on to an independent and actually work there officially?
It was just I'm not a huge fan of dealers. I got to be completely honest. Not necessarily, dealers in particular, but the way they, their architecture, how they run things. Mm-hmm. So I was there long enough to get my certifications and schooling and stuff like that.
Haul ass, basically.
And then, there's, independent shops are willing to use that experience. So I continue to learn because you learn a bunch of different stuff in independent shops of tons of different kinds of cars, motors you're building.
Yeah.
Unique, which I got pretty good at was setting up, corner balancing and making track cars and building cages. And so you get very well rounded doing that kind of stuff.
So like you got to basically do what everybody who becomes a certified mechanic, once you left the dealership, you just got to do some of that start doing that fun stuff, right? Race car stuff. Like all of us are interested in.
You kind of put it into action because at the dealer you learn all that stuff, but you may not see one of those cars or do that work for who knows how long. But in a shop like where I was working, that was like a day-to-day thing.
Yeah.
Where you're setting up cars, you're doing DE checks, you're doing so it's it was a nice change up.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then let's move on. Let's talk about one of your cars because I think it's really unique and it could maybe relate to some people that are listening or not, or at least turn them on to an idea of it. Mm-hmm. So you have a Cayenne S, right?
Base Cayenne.
Oh, it was a base Cayenne.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was a base Cayenne prior to. Okay.
Yep.
So base Cayenne, you had that for a while. How many? Let's say before we manifest into what it is now. How long did you drive it for with that base motor before you did what you did now, and then we'll talk about what that is.
So the Cayenne, I've kept base, the SUV, other than the tires and a couple other off-road modifications. My Cayman, I've had that was my first Porsche.
Okay.
Probably about 8 years now.
Okay, so some time.
Mm-hmm. And I drove it a ton. I dailied that thing for probably about 4 years.
Which is normal if that's your only car.
And bought it at around 40,000 miles, and it had about 105 on it when I was ready to. I was like, okay. I was like, I got a crossroads. It's like either I'm gonna rip this thing apart and see what it looks like, or get a different car.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, maybe a Dot 2 or something like that. And it took me a while to decide. And I finally decided, all right, well, I'm going to keep this because it was a great car. Did autocross with it. I loved it.
Before you get too far into that, what made you, at 105,000, was a car tired? Was it showing signs? Like, what were some of the signs so somebody who's maybe shopping one can hear that?
You know, from the outside, nothing really. Because the standard things you look for in those, like bore scoring or, you know, flakes in the oil or, you know, the IMS going out, it didn't really show any signs of that.
Okay.
But just working with those motors and having those apart so much, I know once they get over the 100,000 mile mark, you're thinking about, you know, bearings and you know, how they're looking and stuff like that. So.
And is that standard for Caymans across the board in general? Yeah.
So which the Cayman shares its motor with, it's pretty much the same Cayman Boxster 911. So all those pretty much 2005 to up to 09, so 2008. They had a good reputation. They still had the IMS that gave a little issue here and there. But as far as holding up in the long run, once you hit the 100,000 mile mark, for me, knowing what they look like on the inside.
Because of your knowledge.
I was like, you know what, let me tear it apart, see what it looks like. And it was actually, I got lucky because it almost wore through my main bearings on my crate.
Wow.
Yeah, so like literally another 5,000 miles, I probably would have been in trouble. So I caught it on the good side there.
And now, okay, so since you were at a crossroads, like you said, go ahead and like fill in what you turned it into.
So yeah, like many a story. You know, I had it apart to refresh it, and I was like, oh, well, you know, while it's apart.
Yeah. Well, I'm in there, girl.
It turned into what, luckily, I already had good friends over at Ellen Engineering. And I had classes also with Jake Raby that developed a lot of the stuff. So naturally, I was like, I called up my buddies at Ellen Engineering. I was like, hey, you know, let's do big bore kit. So they did all my block work, sleeved it for me, turned it into a 3.8 from a 3.4.
That's awesome.
They hooked me up also with, because you can pretty much do everything in-house with them. And they got everything worked out. So they hooked me up with rods, pistons, everything I needed, seals-wise and all that. So you got that Ellen big block kit with there. And then I just so happened to have a X51 heads and cams that would fit on the motor.
Exactly, right.
I mean, yeah,
it worked out.
You know, it just fell in my lap on, you know,
so
lucked out.
Turned it into the monster that it is.
And then it's got the X51, which only came on the anniversary cars.
Okay.
Not a lot of people know about the large aluminum stacks.
Okay.
So it turned into a pretty looking motor, and she screams pretty well now. So
now, obviously, we're not going to quote you or come at you for like pricing, but like if someone's listening and they do have one of these Caymans and they're in that exact same situation, ballpark wise, what are they looking at as far as to do that? Are they looking at 30 grand, looking at 40 grand? What are they looking at like to pay somebody as an independent to do that? If they're not going to, like, I know you did your own,
right? Yeah.
So obviously you're going to have to factor in labor.
Yeah, it's a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can go way over the board because as far as from a refresh, for most shops, you're probably looking at anything under the 10 grand mark.
Okay.
Just tear it apart and redo it.
Okay.
How it is stock.
Got it.
And then once you start getting into big bore kits and crazy stuff like I was doing, you know, anywhere from like 30 to 40 is completely realistic.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
so a healthy bit of money to do it.
It is, yeah. It's quite the commitment. It's right up there almost with the air cooled motors, you know, as far as parts wise and labor wise, because it takes about the same amount of hours to build one of those as an air cooled motor.
Got it. But you know, it's pretty unique. Not too many people are doing 3.8 Caymans, so
yeah, it's a whole different skill set because you take a guy that builds air-cooled motors, is what I learned on.
Mm-hmm.
And then you show them how to build one of these water-cooled motors, and it's like turns them up on their head. It's like, what?
Yeah.
They changed it that much?
Yeah.
And it's a whole different set of tools, whole different knowledge. So it
turns
quite a
into
bit,
one of those things. Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that, because Aaron and I don't really have any knowledge on that,
Nope.
and we get accused of that a lot. So it's also great to have you on for all the Cayman people out there that are Cayman faithful to hear something like that, and also people that are maybe potentially shopping Caymans have some like weariness to it, where, you know, if you're buying a car and it's really not, there's so many of them now, they've been around long enough, they're well over 100,000 miles.
Oh yeah.
So they're like, you're thinking that car is maybe a water-cooled car and you think it's going to be fine. Just be mindful that you may have to do at least at a minimum refresh, and you be in for at least 10 G's to do that if you don't go big on it. And
oh yeah,
know,
that's why I
so
stress
to consider that
everybody when they're, especially the like 05 to 08 cars.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna buy one, really recommend getting a very thorough PPI.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the guys that like Ellen and recommend and all that.
Yeah.
I recommend to get an oil sample.
Yeah. Like a Blackstone or something like that.
And if you can, if the shop is offering it, get a borescope to look at for the bore scoring.
Uh-huh.
'Cause that's really the main issues with those cars. You know, in rare cases they have other things, but that's the main
those are the
things.
big ones. Yeah.
You want to make sure you don't have any bearing wear, and the bore scoring, which is a big one on those too.
Yeah.
But
there you go. You heard it from the experts. And watch out stuff, because we know a lot of people that are shopping, maybe even dual cars. Maybe they already have an air cooled and they want to get a water cooled, but they don't want to buy a 911 because they like the mid-engine, or maybe they want to save a little money and maybe they go after an 05. It's got 130,000 miles on it, and maybe there isn't any of that stuff, and it's basically a ticking time bomb, right? Essentially, it could be.
It possible.
Yeah, it's not like guaranteed, but it's one of those things like what Cory just said as far as recommendation goes is, hey, do your due diligence, make sure you vet that car properly, and just don't take, you know, Jake down from the street. He's like, oh yeah, I got a car's run fine, and then it grenades on you. And
no, Jake from State Farm.
Yeah, not the best.
Yeah, exactly. So let's segue a little bit into like we'll get into like you on the racing side towards the end, but let's talk about like career journey a little bit. So you're kind of a career journeyman on that side of it. You've been doing that. All right, so we take us from the independent. Now you're kind of worked at a couple independent places, and I think a very unique thing. We'll close where you're at currently, but prior to that, I think you were at Tesla, right? You were working at Tesla for a while. I think that's a very unique, I guess, little segue from working on all this combustion engine stuff. And like, what was that like?
I had a little crossroads. Yeah, you're like, what? You worked on what? Yeah, it's
how dare you?
Yeah, no, it was you know, complete. To be honest, their tech is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I had a couple friends working for Tesla, and they were like, hey, you should try it out. And I had a really fun 2 years working there.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I still like working on cars that make noise.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I went back to. But somewhat, I mean, I always hope there's going to be a future for our gas burning cars, you know. But as far as a future of making fun electric cars and the tech, I mean, the way they can diagnose cars over the air, and you know, updates every other week, and you know, it was pretty cool on how they run a business and run their cars. I mean, they have their issues like anything else, and I mean, you're basically driving a computer, so you know, they're a little glitchy. But other than that, it was a really cool experience,
fun time,
learning all that, you know.
Yeah, I think it would add another element, right, of to like something of like somebody of like as a craftsman like yourself, you know, like even that is somewhat of the future. So it's kind of like you got a little taste of it too. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, just being in that business, I mean, you look now, like even Porsche is going huge into electric. They're investing tons of money into that, just like every other brand right now. So it doesn't hurt to, you know that knowledge and how to diagnose and how those systems work, you know.
Yeah,
so.
Sure enough. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing that. And then now you're back, like you said, you're with another independent, and you're helping. I mean, you're still with Porsche, but you kind of do a little bit of everything, right? So like, not to dive too far in, like we came and visited you there, and there's like a Koenigsegg in there, and there's like a Murcielago in there, and there's working on all that stuff. Now, you as a Porsche guy, are they keeping you siloed in the Porsche area and you handle the Porsche stuff, or do you get to go touch any of those other cars like that?
Oh no! Luckily, no. Luckily, I've had experience on many exotics. So
Okay.
the Ferraris, the Lambos, Astons that we get in.
Yeah.
I can still play with those.
So you get the cross play.
Yeah, which I'm totally okay with. As soon as I showed up, apparently Porsche's followed. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Well, you have a loyal following, right? So that's kind of nice.
So I'll always work. I mean, we got a buddy's car in there right now
Yeah.
that is getting some cool stuff done to it.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's luckily I get to still work on what's close to home. I get to play with my Porsche lovelies, and then also we get tons of other cool toys in there.
Yeah,
too
you
that
definitely
get to mess
do.
with.
And I think maybe this winter, we won't get too far into it. Maybe we'll do an open house at that place. I think that'd be kind of fun to do that.
For
we
sure.
talked about that.
I think that'd be a great idea. They got a pretty great venue over there,
Yeah.
showroom and shop. So once it cools off a little bit, that'd be a good idea.
I think it'd be really fun to see that. And then, all right, so let's move into the racing side of Cory. Obviously, you've done DE stuff on track. We'll get into that as well. But I actually want to focus right now. I want to talk about all the all that stuff that you're doing as far as like, all right, I think I saw you at Sebring when you were doing. Why does it escape me right now? You're like, what's?
Oh, well,
Autocross.
I do
Autocross.
yeah,
Yeah.
autocross. Yeah,
Sorry,
I do a bunch
sorry,
of
it's
different
late.
events, so
Yeah.
it's easy to mix up.
Okay,
but,
so
yeah.
autocross. Yeah, so you're actually really, really good at autocross. And you're competing in some really good events. Talk about some of the, like, I don't know, okay, I'm a novice. I've never done autocross. Maybe I'm interested in getting autocross. How do I what are my steps? What do I do from there?
Right. Yeah, that was my first intro into Porsche, actually, was so when I learned when I was 13, 14, it was a friend actually took us out to a Porsche autocross. It was the local PCA club for Tampa, and that was that. I got hooked. But to get into it, is the best thing is just to look up your local chapter. Whether it be if you have a Porsche, look up your local Porsche club. They're usually pretty active in the areas. If not, autocross is super popular, so you're gonna find something in your area. And just go. That's the biggest thing, is just get out there.
Just show up, right? And just start to learn.
Much like every other racing community, we most of the time it's just a very welcoming vibe. We're happy to see new people. So it's like, oh, new people, hop in our cars. We'll show you how to do this. And,
Very cool.
We have instructors to show you, what to do. And then, you get that bug bit too, and you can get going.
Because I think a lot of people, you don't know what you don't know, right? So, it's easy to say, oh, just pop on the internet, find this. But I think it can be intimidating if you don't, you're maybe building something up in your mind. You're like, well, maybe I got to go get a certification, or I need to go do this, or like I got to figure this out. But if that's not required, right? You can just actually like sign up and go and just say, hey,
because we hear all the time, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I got to have this before I go, and I got to have that, and I got to learn this, and like, not really. Especially autocross is a perfect intro into motorsport. So you can, I mean, even if you don't have a local Porsche chapter, SCCA is another sanction that I've always supported, and they're literally everywhere, and you can find an autocross. Same deal. You can be green as whatever, and they'll show you what to do. All you need is a helmet, which most of the time they'll supply for the first couple times.
Okay. That was going to be my next question. Like, how about vehicle requirements? There's like, you don't have to go get a fire extinguisher. You don't have to do all this like madness.
No. Yeah. It's.
So you literally could take your street car and like Cory just said, with a helmet, and sign up and build up your skill set and go practice and start to show up at these things, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You get, like you said, just pretty much a helmet.
Yeah.
As long as your car is mechanically sound. yeah, you can go out there. You know, if it's in your Jetta or your, you know, whatever, your Civic, it doesn't matter. You can have fun in it. And then you start doing that for a while, and then you're like, hey, these local chapters also offer track days, and you can hop into that kind of stuff, you know. But it's autocross has been awesome for me. I love it.
Yeah. Why do you like it so much? Like, from somebody who enjoys actually doing it, what makes you enjoy it so much?
It's very technical on the higher level. Because a lot of people say they'll be like, oh, once you get a taste of the track, then you don't want to autocross. Well, once you really start analyzing what it takes to be, you know, on the top end of it, being like a tenth of a second faster than somebody is like that rush is amazing. I'd compare it to almost like if you were a track runner or something like that, right? And you're like, we're both super fast, but I beat you by 1/10 or something. Yeah, because don't get me wrong, I love running DEs and track days, but when you can go neck and neck against somebody on it's a time course, everybody's running the exact same course, and you're in your class where you're running against all the same cars, and you know, okay, I beat that guy. You know, or that, I beat his ass. Or you win your class for the year, and that's like amazing. And then you go out for most of these events, and they're like not more than $40 for the day.
And I think that's another thing too. I'm glad you brought that up because it's very affordable, right?
Yeah, because a track day when I go for like Sebring, say, you know, you're budgeting, you know, $200-300 to get in
at least,
and then you got to have you're going to go through a set of pads. You're going to probably use up some tires, so that adds up to thousands of dollars for a weekend.
Track insurance too, so.
If you have a nice car that you want to
make sure that thing
you're taking your GT3 and you don't want to lose all that money in a wall, then your track insurance. Autocross, you know, pretty much the max you're going to spend for the day is like
run
$50.
What you brung type of deal.
And there's really, other than cones to hit.
I was going to say there's a safety element too, right? Like where people, maybe even if you're a novice, maybe it's a little less intimidating. So you don't, like if you're at Sebring or if you're at Daytona or you're at any of these other tracks that are local to us, but even with your local track, wherever you're at, you know, to never be on it and then go out there, I think that's even more intimidating, to go run a DE and never been out on track and thinking about maybe wadding your car up or doing any of that stuff. So you can learn a lot more car control at a autocross, correct?
Oh yeah. I mean, because you learn, you'll learn how to recover that car from every angle and feel your tires like every braking point. And I mean, you get so used to your car that when you are ready to advance to other forms of motorsport or racing, whatever it is, that even if you're not familiar with the track, you know what you can do, you know what your car can do, so you're not just going into it blind. You know.
I think that's really good, because we talk about seat time a lot, and a lot of it's based on maybe either track time or mountain time or whatever, but it doesn't matter how you really get it. But that could be a really good way that we've never brought up on the podcast about how to get maybe some really good, quick seat time. If you do a lot of these autocrosses, you could start to get really comfortable with your car and know what it's capable of, and know what you're capable of on top of that.
Especially we're pretty lucky in the Florida area where, I mean, aside from COVID time, unfortunately, it kind of knocked everything, but you could almost really go on an autocross every weekend if you wanted to.
And I know there's some people who do that, right? They that's what they do. They love it. That's
I did that when in my teenage years and early 20s. Man,
I'm be there every weekend.
You couldn't get me. I was.
I don't need no girlfriend, man.
No. Yeah. What's that? No, I was out every weekend. And that's a great way to get track time. And not only is it might not be the longest time in the car, because your average autocross run is maybe 2 minutes at the max, but that is like amplified, so that what you learn in that 2 minutes is probably like a 30-minute track section, of car control.
I would agree with that.
So once you start catching on to autocross, your skill level jumps up, quite a bit compared to even if you did 10 track days at Sebring. So,
And just recently too, you and I were talking about maybe even trying to get in a car together, like on a historic racing type of front. Mm-hmm. You just recently got your license to actually kind of run that, didn't you?
Yeah, it's been a long time goal. I haven't had time to do it. But yeah, I got through SCCA.
Yeah.
Took there, which was a great, I recommend to anybody that's looking into getting into road racing,
mm-hmm.
is they have a actual novice class that they run once or twice a year, I believe.
Okay.
And they take you from not knowing anything
mm-hmm.
to knowing how road racing works.
Okay.
And they take you through a whole weekend. You probably have like 4 hours of seat time, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
For hardly any money. And they'll get you through this and get you a novice permit.
Yeah.
And then once I believe it's 3 races after that you sign up for and complete without any mishaps.
Yeah.
Then you have
craziness.
Then you have a SCCA license where you can go out and do this grassroots.
Yeah. Like what SCCA's always been doing, right? Yeah.
And you can start off doing your Civic or your Neon or your what have you, your Miata, which is your most popular.
Very common. Yeah.
And you go out there. It doesn't matter if you're winning or you're the fastest, but you can go out there and have fun.
Yeah. So like when you go to the original class, like you said, they get you the novice. You're bringing your car that you have an idea that's going to be your race car or something to that effect. Is that correct?
Yep. It has to. Now, in that particular case, it has to be somewhat of a track car.
Okay.
So it has to have all the safety equipment, whatever is required at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Usually roll cage and fire suppression and all that. But, so you take your vehicle, and they run you through all your paces of what you do in this situation, what you do in that situation. And as long as you study and you've been in, know what to do, then, they set you on your way.
Nice. Yeah, I need to do that. I've been wanting to do that. I guess I'm going to need to... Well, maybe I can do it in the BMW you did it in too. Like, it doesn't matter if you...
Yeah, we could talk about that.
Yeah, like where it has to be your car, right?
You're not in the GT3?
No, I mean, like, we're kind of like he's paying to use it. So, like, I would be like, I would pay to use it also. Like, maybe that could be a thing instead of... me buying some race car, because essentially that's what you want to do. You don't want to go build one.
Yeah, I mean, that's another great class.
Those things are still not cheap, dude. I mean,
not cheap enough.
Yeah, like a proper one, no. So, yeah, that's not just, $5,000. No, it's not that cheap, bro. But anyways, that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I think there's a lot of people listening, including myself, that's like really interested in all aspects of that. And it's been... We've had, pro drivers on, but I think it's really good to have somebody like yourself who also works on vehicles to sit there and discuss that aspect, and then also go into the racing side of the grassroots, because essentially, I would say predominantly everybody that we're listening to either falls into that category, right? Novice or trying to get better or figuring stuff out. And I think the biggest thing with that is the intimidation factor of like, how do I even get started? Like, how do I, get over the barrier of me being basically paralyzed from my own fear of not like getting there.
Yeah. That's what held me back for the longest time, because, I mean, racing has been my life. Working in cars, fixing them, and racing, it has. And but that's one of the things that held me back was like, get my license. I got to have all this, and it's gonna take time, and I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
It's like, well.
And then probably on top of that too, you're like, I don't have a car to do that with either, right?
Exactly. Luckily, I lucked out with that. I have a good buddy that we're sharing the car, and I got lucky with that. But I mean, there's so many independent guys running like these Miatas and stuff. You can run for weekends, where you set aside a couple weekends and you save up some money to rent this car for a couple times, and you can get your license out of the way.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, you know, I really like driving this car. Maybe I'll start looking for a spec Miata or, you know, whatever, and invest in that. But the key is to just kind of make the jump.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of excuses not to do it
Yeah.
that you tell yourself.
And I'm just as guilty. I
know.
should have gotten my license years ago, and I still haven't done it.
Yeah.
And I have no reason but my own excuses behind it, where I like, oh well, I've been super busy, and like I just want to spend some time at home. And it's like, okay, well, how long are you gonna put this off for?
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah. That's the normal story.
Yeah.
You know, you think
So-
about it, and then you another year,
Yeah,
and
because
another
it's like,
year. And,
yeah, and the next thing you know, like, so I think I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to put that on my calendar for 2022 as like a goal that I must do, and at least do that part, because I know you and I have talked offline. Maybe someday we can share a car at HSR. And
Oh yeah.
you know, speaking of HSR, you do a lot of work with HSR. You know, you work on a lot of those cars, right? So the Heritage Motorsports cars, you get brought in to help with those weekends and prep some of those cars and work on those cars during that 24 and then other races like Elkhart Lake and all those kind of other things. So talk a little bit about that historic side and your passion for that too, because I have a strong passion for it. You know, we're always there, and you're basically our lifeline when we're there and we speak to, like, you're our inside man, and you kind of tell us what's going on with everything, and we kind of hang out with you. And I feel so close to it, and like you're actually doing it all, so you must even feel closer to it. But like, how's that? Like, it just, man, it feels so awesome, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it's the old cars is what always pulls me back. Luckily, I've have been fortunate enough to have a great relationship with HSR and Heritage from a young age.
Yeah.
They're like family to me. So
Nice.
being able to grow up and work on, you know, RSRs or 935s and, you know, all this crazy stuff. It's a really cool clique to be in. It's like nothing else. I mean,
exactly.
Even if you go
Because
out
no
to
one
the
else is
races.
doing that.
Yeah. I mean, to take this, you know, 50-year-old car and go race it, you know, neck to neck against somebody else, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I love new Porsche, new cars.
Yeah.
It's all cool. But then you show me an old air-cooled or something like that, or a race car in particular.
Yeah.
That's what gets me.
And I think that we've emphasized this so much too on prior podcasts about how great HSR is, and there's so many people that have never even been that are self-proclaimed Porsche enthusiasts and all these kind of things. And I'm not challenging your enthusiasm for not, if you don't go to these events. But however, I think you're really doing yourself a disservice by not showing up and at least, you know, witnessing what's happening. And you don't have to be there every year, but at least put it in your bucket list to go see that stuff, because
At least Daytona.
yeah,
If nothing else.
and the intimacy behind that. You can walk through the paddock and everybody's so approachable, as long as you're not like hitting them in the middle of like an engine rebuild or a transmission rebuild or something. Everything should be fine. And you can really pick somebody's brain without, you know, going too far, but just saying, hey, what's going on with this car? Oh, what are you doing here? Oh, what are you doing with that? Oh, this car runs this. And everybody kind of takes the time to talk to you, so you can really get your IQ and your knowledge up on the historic cars just hanging around the paddock, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't know any other form of racing right now where you buy a ticket for like HSR, and pretty much wherever you're located, you know, they go to a track near you.
Yeah.
So you can go make it work, and you can go in the paddock next to these cars.
Yep.
See your childhood dream car, and you know.
Yeah, and it's
It's
beautiful
right there.
livery sitting there.
It's right there. You can get it right next to it. You can see him going down the racetrack, you know, going at full tilt. And I mean, I don't know how many times where I've been under a car working on a transmission, I have people come ask me questions, and you know,
I don't know who they would be.
yeah, and I'm like, most of the time I'm okay with it, because you know, these people love it.
Yeah,
and, like,
it's
I love
usually
it.
Aaron and Mike. Hey, Cory,
Yeah.
what are you
I'm
doing
like,
over there?
Oh, hey guys. What's up?
It's the 5th transmission I put in this one.
Oh yeah, Daytona's a hard one.
Yeah.
But I mean, every other form of racing, is great also, but not too many you can get up in it.
Yeah.
You know, and see these cars that close. talk to the mechanics, talk to the most of the times they love talking about their cars.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go ask them questions about their cars.
Exactly.
It's just it's a really like a diamond in the rough kind of thing where if more people knew about it, like just go check out one of these races. They're awesome.
It's so cheap to go and just spectate at.
Yeah, they don't charge hardly anything for a ticket.
Yeah.
And you can go see all these amazing cars for the weekend.
Yeah.
Like nothing. So.
All you mothers and fathers that have children out there, bring your kids to it.
Oh, yeah.
Like teach them like some cool stuff and just bring them and show them this stuff and keep it alive, right? Like keep the youth keep seeing this stuff and
get more Corys out there.
Yeah, get them away from the
Pretty
iPads
rare.
and all that other crap and actually see some machinery running and some cool stuff and explain to them why it's cool. And maybe there's plenty of guys there when they see little kids, they want to tell them about the cars and why they're cool and what makes them important and all that stuff. So yeah, I think it's one of those things too. We look forward to going to the event all together, and I know when you go to, you look super forward to it, but I also look forward to seeing you there because you kind of give me the lowdown of what's going on with all their cars, and we just look forward to that. Like, oh man, cool. And you're like, yeah, this car's dead. This car's going. It's just kind of like
dead.
Exactly.
It's like, well, we just rebuilt this one, on the fly, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially, we got Daytona coming up. Which
is going to
probably
I mean, that's like
October.
Yeah,
like month
right
and
around
a half.
Halloween. Which is going to be like, it's as far as HSR goes, that's probably like the event to make.
I agree with that. I've been preaching to people on the podcast. I was like, if you're ever going to go to just one HSR, that's the one to go to. That 24 is the one to go to. Yeah. Because prior to COVID, and you've been doing it for so many years, you can back me up on this. I mean, there's cars coming internationally that come over, and they ship cars from Europe to come run in that. And these are guys that live in Europe, and they want to come run this race.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially pre-COVID. Yeah, we had, over 500 cars.
Yeah.
And, all these Europeans coming over, bringing over amazing stuff, like original Ford GTs, 935s, you name it. They're bringing it over because everybody loves Daytona.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an iconic track. So, and it's getting back to that. Like I was talking to HSR earlier, a couple weeks ago, and numbers up quite a bit from last year. So entries. So
I'm glad
it's getting back to normal, which is it's great to hear.
Yeah, I'm glad for that because it really is very unique to see so many diverse cars there, and not even just from a Porsche standpoint. There's Lotuses there. There's everything. There's like GTR race cars that are there, Nissan stuff. It's all types of stuff there, and
everything. There's
something for everybody, regardless of what brand you are loyal to. But I just think it's neat to see them all there. And like you said before, there's very few places in the entire world that you can see all of these cars participate against one another at the same track. And not even like, we're not even talking about some BS parade laps where you get to see them just kind of like putz around. Like these guys are going after it. They're trading paint. They're trading like tire. They want to be there. They want to compete, which makes it exciting too because they're really running the cars. I mean, obviously they're not being reckless, but you're seeing the cars run, as you said, full tilt. You're seeing them get after. You're seeing these fireballs come after these cars. So yeah, it's just a really, really good event. And I think that's very unique that, you can do so many different things. You being, the mechanic and doing, okay, I'm doing this race thing. And then I'm also working at this independent and I'm doing that. And like, I think that's really cool.
Busy.
Yeah. Yeah. Your portfolio is very diverse. And I think that makes you such a, you've seen so much and you've done so much, which makes it, and you're not an old guy. So it's kind of cool that you've done so much even at a young age and got to see so much and do all of those things. Long term, do you have any aspirational goals to like actually have your own shop and just say, hey, this is Cory's place and this is all I do now and I do race car stuff and I do that?
Yeah, Cory's place. Yeah. I'll have to patent that one. It's that's the ultimate goal. Yeah. Later down the road. Because in this job, you're always continuously learning, and I don't really care to do anything else. That's all.
You've been doing it this long, and you still love it. So
last 15 years, and I still love it. So eventually, that's I would love to wake up and go to my own shop and do all this stuff for people that I love doing.
You're like, we ain't doing no oil changes here. Yeah. Build race cars. Get them out of here.
It's like, we'll do it, but we'll also build your motor. But, you know.
You heard what Cory,
while you're here.
You heard what Cory said. Get it out of here.
We got to drain the oil to do the motor. So, yeah, it's... that's definitely the ultimate goal. So, you know, we'll have to watch out for Cory's shop.
I think you'll be able to do that. I think you already have a very strong following in our area that would follow you to your own place. So I think that's there. I think it's obviously we just need to get some ducks in a row, and maybe we'll see. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see what the future holds. That'd be cool.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. What do you have for Cory, Aaron?
I was just going to ask you how your first HSR was. Like, what did you do? Well, how was that? Just super overwhelming?
Oh,
You're like, I'm never going to do this again?
Oh, yeah. Well, I still say that, like, every 24 hours I do.
Why did I do this?
Yeah. That event in particular, because the mechanics and even the race drivers, you're not running for 24 hours, but it goes in stints.
Yeah.
But we're up for like over 24 hours.
Yeah.
And every time I'm like, why the heck did I do this? Like, I'm not doing it again. And then, 6 months goes by. I'm like, hey, David, am I going to the 24 hour next year?
Yeah. It's just enough time, right, for the next one to come right back around. And you're like amnesia. And you're like, I'm ready to go again.
Yep. And as far as like the first time I went at HSR, I have to think back. That was a long time ago. It was because I've known those guys for like almost as long as I've been mechanics, probably about 13, 14 years.
Were you doing Porsche stuff at that time?
Oh, yeah. I remember having to drop a motor. And, of course, you go into it. You're like, oh, yeah, I can do all this stuff, And then you're out there and somebody breaks, like, in between
it's like
sessions.
Pressure time, right?
And they're like, okay, drop that motor and change the clutch and do this.
You don't have 2 days to do this, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, shoot, okay, it's go time. And you're like, hoping not to, like, ruin it and break it. And like, oh, did I tighten that? Yeah. No, but it was a rush, for sure. And because we fix all that stuff, like, in the paddock.
Yeah.
We don't take it to this
there's nowhere to go.
Somewhere.
Exactly.
You literally catch us on our backs pulling the transmission out or pulling the motor out, and so you gotta get really good at working on the ground. And it was a rush for me. So I was in that in itself, working at the track on these cars. I was hooked.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll keep coming back and I want to keep doing this.
Yeah, and I think that part of it, obviously, and then like the flip side of getting the car back out there, right? That's also like the payoff. You're like, we got the guy back out. This is a client's car, and
goes and wins something.
He's excited to get back out in the car and go to, hey, thanks guys. Like, wow, somebody's doing burnouts in front of the Airbnb that we have. That's an inside joke on the air. So. The Airbnb. Now we're on that topic. Not to like close Cory off.
Round.
Nope. Man, so we've been staying here 4 days now. So the minute we walked in here,
it could be
it's a meat locker in here. It is like 60 degrees. There is no thermostat in here. We cannot find one. However, when we walked in, the basement door was wide open down to downstairs where it lived. Yep. So we were trying to send Aaron down there to see if it would. And he was going down there, and he's like, "Wait a minute, I know what's happening." He went like 2 steps. I was going to close the door behind him because I was going to leave him down there. Yep, but anyways, we joke around. We have an inside joke now. This is why we love going on these road trips, and you should do this with your friends too. And I'm sure you've done it before if you're listening, but it's probably been a long time or whatever. But you go and you have these bro trips or whatever, and now we're like, hey, there's this like killer clown at Liz. Okay, we've manifested this whole story. And like we come home and we're like, he's probably sitting on the couch watching TV, waiting for us to come home. I'm like, he's trying to kill us, like all this kind of weird stuff. And because we don't know why it's so cold in here. Maybe there's a lot of ghosts here. We don't know what's going on with this place. But
there's no way like a house can stay 55 degrees all day.
No, with no AC ever.
There's no AC.
Yeah, there's no fluctuation. It just stays the same.
I looked outside. There's no AC.
It's like, what's happening here? And it's been warm here, so it's
80 degrees outside.
Mind you, I'm sleeping on the first floor where it's trying to kill me every night.
Yeah, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, now Aaron has
Yeah, I've got the attic.
Oh yeah.
He's
Yeah,
got the
right above my
creepy-
bed.
creepy
which is
attic
great.
above
So
I
I have
know.
attic clowns.
Yeah.
Well, then I woke up, my shoulder was like sore. I was like, maybe he like bit my shoulder last night when I was asleep. Like it was like nubbins or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
he's
was like,
taking nibbles. Yeah.
but anyways, I know he's sidebar, but we wanted to bring that up because, you know, we always love going on these road trips and, you know, we have these fun times and, you know, it's kind of cool because we haven't actually stayed with Cory before, but the last Lufthansa cult we were at out in California, we all hung out
Yeah, it's
like
tradition now.
every
Yep,
time,
yep.
you know, they had their own house and we were in it because there was a lot bigger group because we, you know, basically all flew out to California. A lot fewer of us came this time, but it was nice to actually, you know, have Cory with us and like wanted to bring him on the show because he has so much knowledge and, you know, he's been a longtime friend of ours and I think it was just good timing to have him on the show at the Ghost House. So
Yeah. Hey, they brought me as a sacrifice, guys.
Exactly.
So, like, it's not-
don't be fooled. You guys know I'm the
Yeah,
minority
I know
here
what's
too
going
also.
on.
So it's like Aaron's the only Blanquita here. So like,
He's not wrong.
yeah.
No.
Cory and I would die together
Yeah, we would.
probably.
We go
Band of
first
Brothers
in the
style.
movie. Yeah.
Band of Brothers. What happened to them, Aaron? I don't know. Oh, sleeping, snoring.
Yep. But
Yeah.
no, it's been a great time, and no, yeah, these guys have they've become really great friends over
Yeah.
the last year or so, and it's been a great trip. I've
Yeah,
had
it's been a really
good
fun
time,
trip. Yeah,
you know.
we've had a great Luft, and Aaron and I will do our Luft closeout and tell you guys a little bit about that on a different episode. But Cory, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I don't have anything else for you. Aaron, do you have anything for him?
No?
Awesome. So from Ghost House to Indy, we're out.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PCAR Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at PCAR Talk or online at PCARTalk.com.